Welcome to Audacity Works, a podcast inspired by and dedicated to the working artist, the creative entrepreneur, and generally, doing the damn thing. This exists on the premise that the world belongs to those who have the audacity to believe that their lives have value. This is for you. Welcome to Audacity Works. I am your host, Rachel Strickland, and this is episode number 174. And today's episode is about returning to old work. This is by request. Tali wrote to me about this. Thank you, Tali. Hello. And Tali asked, to be specific, how do you approach revisiting a project or an idea without just seeing all the negatives and the things you'd change in the original? Coming back into the rehearsal space and seeing the piece 3 months after I made it awoke all manner of discomfort. The great thing was I had no time to make changes, just work with what was there and focus on bringing the original intentions through. But if I'd had time, I wonder if I'd have destroyed it or if it would have evolved. Let's talk about it. Full disclosure, Tali asked me this maybe over a year ago, and it never came up, and I would look at it in my list of subjects, but the reason that I wanted to talk about it today is because of a tiny story that I'm going to tell you. So a couple of weeks ago was in bulk, and I like to do a lot of thorough cleaning, and I decided I'm going to clean my office. So I meant all of it, every little piece of paper, everything. And amongst the many, many things that I had to sort through, I found a dead laptop. This was from around 2013, so fully 13 years ago. And I had forgotten the password. I could turn it on, but I didn't know how to get into it, so I took it to the Geek Squad and paid them some money to put it on a flash drive for me. Or to put whatever was on the hard drive onto a flash drive and to recycle the computer. Got rid of the computer, recycled it. I'm so happy it is no longer collecting dust in a pile in my office. I tend to just put things in piles. Here's my pile of shit to deal with later. And then I'll make another pile. And before you know it, all the corners are taken up by piles. And I don't like that. For someone who makes a lot of piles, I don't like being around them. I know they're there to help me organize and stay focused, but they end up really stealing my focus and my awareness. And it clutters up my brain like it clutters up my space. Now I have one less thing. Good. Anyway. So now I have this section of my life. Everything that was on that hard drive is now on a tiny little USB, and I've just looked at it this morning. And it's not at all organized, or if I had organized folders, they didn't actually make the journey onto the flash drive. It's fine. I never would have known, but I did get some old writing off of it. And this is where this is what made me think of Tali's question today. There were a lot of old photos. There was a lot of old writing. I didn't look at any of the videos. This is around the time that I left Seattle and moved to San Francisco. So it was a really prolific time of life for me, some of the most prolific times of life for me. And to look through all of that old work would take a very, very long time and a kind of emotional bandwidth that I'm not prepared to part with today. As it was, I accidentally sank 3 hours into looking through just old writings. And I'm not talking about, here's a short story I wrote 13 years ago. I used to write every day just on the computer. It was a version of morning pages. I didn't officially start doing morning pages by hand in a physical paper notebook until 2014. But I have always written almost daily just on a word processor. And I was looking through a lot of things like that. And I found something that I'm going to read to you just because I like it. And this tiny piece of evidence from my life is just like a window into my state of mind at the time. This is quite short, but it's dated from July 9th, 2013. And I'll tell you the context after, but first I just want to read it to you the way that I found it. Begin quote. California. Desert riot. I do not love you. I do not love your houses, lined up like pastel teeth, spilling out Spanish words and white concrete lawns. I do not love your dry lands, the south side of San Bruno Mountain, brown and dry as a cracked walnut. You make me thirsty, craving the dark, wet tree line of the Pacific Northwest, or the black water-rich heat of Louisiana, clinging everywhere, everything quenched, everything sweating, even the mason jars. You make me long for the green jade grass in North Carolina, so juicy it stains the soles of bare feet, its fragrance sweet and filling up the avenues, the lakesides, the trees we stuffed with quartz as children. And then there's you. Why do you insist on remaining exactly as you are? I find your combination of blues grates on my nerves. Why is there so much white in your blue? Why, in the sun on a summer's day, blinded by the white blue and the silver sheen of foreign eucalyptus, am I freezing cold with your frigid seaside winds? Why are your mountains bare? Why are your people young their whole lives and living out of rooms hung with tapestries, smelling of skunkweed? Someday, I will leave you, California, and go back to the waiting arms of a land where the air smells of bayou and tobacco and thunderstorms. You will miss me as much as I loved you. With all the indifference with which you held me, and I consented to be held for a time. So I wouldn't call that a love note to, end quote, by the way. I wouldn't call that a love note to California. It's more like a I'll tolerate you note. For context, I really, really loved living in the Pacific Northwest. I lived in Seattle for 4 years, and I carved out a beautiful community and cut my teeth as a working artist and had a lot of growth and success there. And when Manflesh got hired at Google was a thing that we did not think was going to happen. And he was told this is never going to happen. And then it happened. And I'm like, well, you have to go. Anyway, we had to move back to San Francisco. And I was kind of done with San Francisco in my heart because I had already lived there before. So it was really difficult for me to go back. And I found that I was very resentful of a lot of the things about the land that I found just super foreign to me. And that's what all that was about. And yeah, the me that wrote that was having a hard time. But it's not like it was like that the whole time. The next 5 years that I lived in San Francisco were very wonderful and very different from the first time. Anyway, looking through old things like this, reading some writing, most of it horrendous, and almost all of it excessive. And doing all of this is what made me think of Tali's question. What do you do when you revisit old work? And I've heard so many people say in one-on-ones with me, or even in conversation with friends, like, I cannot stand to look at old videos of myself. All I see are the flaws, what I could have done better. And I get it. Like, that's we want to look our best and put our best foot forward, blah, blah, blah. But it's such a waste of emotional energy, you know? And so here's what I have to say to Tali's question. The you that made that work it would be easy to say you were doing the best you could with what you had, because that's probably true. And I think we all know that there are times where we could have done better with what we had, but for whatever reason, we didn't. And whether that reason was, cognitive space and emotional energy, or we just did not have the spoons, it's easy to blame that part of that version of ourselves, the yesterday version. Like, you should have done more pull-ups. Well, for whatever reason, past you didn't do more pull-ups. And berating them is a completely futile endeavor. Think of it this way. If you have parents who are of the sentimental variety, they may have saved a piece of artwork that you did as a very young child. Now, who's going to look at some finger paintings that they did age 6 and be like, ugh, this is so awful? It's like they didn't even have a sense of composition to begin with, and there's no technique. Like, no shit, you were 6. Oh, that's a really exaggerated example to say, can we try to start being more active about giving ourselves grace, like that version of us that used to exist, that yesterday us, because there's jack shit we can do about it. Like, what's done is done. It is in the past, signed, sealed, delivered, done. There is no reason on earth to punish yourself for something that's in the past. Now, you can make amends. You can make amends if it is appropriate for you to do so. But self-flagellation for not being better than you could be, that's silly. For example, I look back on that writing that I did July 9th of 2013. It's not supposed to be a poem. It's written in prose format. I find it kind of poetic, and it amuses me because now when I think about that time in my life in San Francisco, I romanticize the hell out of it. And I remember loving like the smell of San Bruno Mountain behind my house and how it smelled all spicy when it had been heated up by the sun. But this version of me had not begun to love the mountain yet and was just resentful that I had been plucked willingly, but resentfully out of the dark tree line, as I say, of the Pacific Northwest, where I was very comfortable. And it just opened up this whole reality in my mind, like remembering, no, you actually, you weren't just happy and cheerful and you were a fecund young artist. You're like, no, you were pissed off and you didn't like the houses and the cement and you were mad that it was cold. So, roundabout way of saying my answer to you, dear Tali, is to try and appreciate the version of you that made that piece in the first place. And particularly as I know you to be an American, if I'm not mistaken, and even if you're not, this still holds true. Look at how unlikely it is for you to have made that piece in the first place. Look at the odds, like stacked against that version of you from months ago who made this piece in the first place, and what she had to overcome to gather the resources, including her own energy, the space, the people, put them all into a room, mine her own electric brain for ideas, put those ideas onto the bodies of other people, and inspire them to follow your instructions. It is incredible that that even exists in the first place, no matter what it looks like. It is so unlikely a thing to make any art at all, and also seemingly inevitable at the same time. What an incredible mystery that is. the fuck? What a time to be alive. What a weird experience to be incarnate. And this is truly how I start looking at things when I look back on my old work. Is a part of me embarrassed by my old work? It depends. Some of it was really fucking bad. And then, I won't say yes, because it was the best I could do at that time. And I hope that the things that I'm building right now, 70-year-old me will look back on with grace, because, girl, I'm doing the best I can for you. Woman, I am trying to give you a good future. Please give me grace. And that really does help me to give older pieces more grace. Because it's true, Tali, like if you had had more time, you may have destroyed the piece. Or maybe it would have evolved. Both of those things are equally true. But it doesn't really matter, because you had the time that you had, and you were only able to like remain true to the original vision. So that's how to deal with the discomfort, or at least that's how I deal with it, just to look at how unlikely it is in the first place and what an extraordinary thing it is, and to give yourself grace that that was the best you could do with what you had, including energy and desire. Given enough time, we might ruin all manner of the masterpieces that we have made or begun or abandoned. As the great Jenny Tufts says, this is one of my favorite quotes. Jen, I love this quote. The work is never done. It's only ever due. Too long didn't read. We just have to fucking get over it and deal with ourselves. But the good news, my friend, is that looking at a piece of work that you have made in the past and seeing what it could be is good news. It doesn't need to lead you down a flushing toilet into self-deprecation and despair. What that is your artistic instincts and your artistic sensibilities being honed and sharpened by time and use. At one time, you made that, and it was the best you could make with what you had access to, and now you have more of a vision. It's been more evolved, it's been more developed, your tastes have been refined and altered, and now you're looking through this new lens at your old work and seeing new possibilities. And that is pretty fucking cool. And now this original question from Tali was only a 3-month gap. That's only a 3-month gap between when she made the piece and when she went back to rework it for a second presentation. 3 months is a drop in the bucket, a blink, a sigh. And even in that brief window of time, you evolved as an artist. You evolved past that version of you enough that just 3 months later, you were able to look back at it and see possibilities. That's what we call vision. That is a beautiful, beautiful capacity that you have. So rather than, focus on the discomfort that it causes, and like, oh no, it could have been better in this way. I would prefer to celebrate how spectacular you are. What a crazy creature you are. What an interesting array of abilities you have. This is so cool that we get to do this. It is so cool that I get to know you. And of course, there's no way to know that if we do revisit old work, and if we have enough time, yeah, we might ruin it. Because the work is never done. It's only ever due. And maybe we'll evolve it. Maybe it will become 8 more things. There's no way to know. There's only what we can do with the time that we have. Very Gandalf of me to say, but it is true. I'm looking at the time, my friends. I'm going to remind you that The waitlist is open currently, and not for very long, for the last cycle, the very, very last time I'm going to run the Audacity project as it is right now, with me at the helm, offering way too much support. Honestly, I tell people about how I run this project. They're like, you're insane. You're insane to make yourself that available. I'm like, well, that's how I've designed it, and I'm doing it one more time, so come aboard. There'll be a link in the show notes. We're going to be enrolling it very soon. I'm going to start sending emails out this week, probably. But the enrollment won't open. It'll be more of a romancing. I'll romance you first. That's what the wait list is for. So highly recommend it if you've been waiting. If you have requests for future episodes, you can reach me always on Instagram at Rachel Strickland Creative or on Patreon at Rachel Strickland Creative. This podcast is powered by Patreon. So Tali, you as well, thank you so much for being there, and thank you to all my patrons for standing with me, for your trust, and for your support. This podcast, and indeed the very creature that I am, could not exist this way without you. Thank you. So until next time, my friends, give yourself some grace, especially the you of yesterday that did the best they could with what they had, and the you of today that sees it could be even cooler, maybe. And don't go back to sleep.